Dog Works Radio is sponsored by Alaska Dog Works. Check out their website at alaskadogworks.com. Radio Free Palmer 89.5 KVRF presents Mushing Radio, hosted by Robert Forto. Mushing Radio is about dog-powered sports, living in the Great White North, and mushing. Visit our website at mushingradio.com. Here is your host, Robert Forto.
Hello and welcome, everybody. This is Robert Forto, and you're listening to Mushing Radio here on KVRF 89.7 in the Mat-Su Valley. RadioFreePalmer.org is our live streaming site, and you can find all of our episodes over on dogworksradio.com. Be sure to check us out on social media by searching Dog Works Radio. And tonight we have a returning guest. His name is Jake Hway, and he's calling in from Minnesota. And tonight is a special show because we're going to talk all about the life of retired sled dogs. Jake, welcome to Mushing Radio again. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're all about, please?
Yeah, sounds good. I'm Jake Hway. I've been running dogs for over 20 years, and we're here in Ely, Minnesota. I operate a kennel called Chili Dog Sled Dog Trips, and we do tours for people and work with retired racing dogs. This is our main focus, and that's kind of our lifestyle around here. So,
right. Jake, you and I have been talking about this subject for the last few years, and in particular, right after Iditarod, because right after Iditarod is an interesting time in the sport of mushing, and you will see often a lot of the big kennels, the Iditarod racers, will find or look for places to either buy, sell, or give away some of their dogs after the race. And I know that is sort of what you're involved in. But before we jump into that, what is the deal with retired sled dogs? How long, I guess my first question, Jake, is how long is the typical racing career of a very, very competitive sled dog team?
It depends on the dog. Every dog is different, and every type of racing is different. And so it's hard to pinpoint it exactly because there is none of that. But generally, with longer distance racing dogs, they can do it longer than maybe people would think, because it's not about speed, it's about endurance, it's about conserving energy, and those older dogs are very good at conserving energy. That's something that might take a while to learn and get conditioned to and used to. It's kind of natural for them as well, but it's those older dogs are usually able to do that longer than a lot of people might think. It's different from what happens in more sprint style stuff, or more like if you're thinking of different types of sports where dogs are like, dog racing or something, it would need to be younger because it's all about the speed, and that's not necessarily the case with endurance athletes. But that's just talking about one aspect of this sport, this lifestyle. So there is all different speeds of races. So maybe a faster type of racing dog might not go for as long because there needs to be a little higher caliber and a little younger.
So Jake, at your kennel, you are in the business, so to speak. You don't form it as a business, meaning a lot of trading hands in terms of money and whatnot, but dogs come to you from these racing kennels, primarily in the upper Midwest, in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, etc. And they come to stay at your kennel, and then you give them a second life, so to speak, where you run tours with them. Can you tell us a little bit about your business model, please?
It sort of evolved into what it is, where we're working with older dogs. It works really well for the type of trips that we're doing. We're doing shorter trips. So we're working with older dogs, doing short distance things. We're doing half day trips. So that's just kind of the niche that we fell into. There's a lot of different options of different types of trips to do in the area, but we're focusing on doing shorter trips, working with generally older dogs, or at least middle age on up. So a lot of times we're getting dogs that are retiring from racing when they're, somewhere in their mid to upper mid ages, and then hanging out with us doing these types of things for the rest of their life. And it's pretty awesome to work with them in those ages, because they're just incredible and, loving life and still thriving, doing what they love. Because like when they're racing, they're thriving, they're loving it, they're passionate about it. It's what they're, it's what they are made for. It's like what they're, every fiber of their being is just kind of aching to do that and be racing and stuff and be active sled dog. And then we're doing what we're doing, just on a little bit less, a little bit scaled back schedule, and it works pretty well for working with these older dogs. So our program working with older dogs and doing shorter trips.
So, Jake, you had mentioned that you typically get the dogs at middle age, and for folks that are listening, most of them are not mushers. They're dog owners, and they're the typical lab, golden retriever, German shepherd owners who typically have a lifespan of about 10 to 12 years with that type of lifestyle, meaning a lot of sitting around on the couch, a lot of short walks around the block, and that's about it. And of course, there's a lot of obesity and whatnot in pet dogs, but these dogs are a little bit different, aren't they? First off, what is middle age in terms of a sled dog?
So again, it depends, and it's weird with sled dogs because most of what we're talking about with sled dogs is Alaskan Huskies. That's what we're working with, and there just isn't really a standard. So, but we're getting dogs at ages somewhere generally between 6 to 10, sometimes even like 12 when they come here, and then they hang out for the rest of their life here. So, but it could be, it can be younger than that as well. I mean, there's a lot of different options for older dogs when they're done with racing at whatever age that is. And some dogs, they might get retired from racing even younger if they're just not working out for the team or whatever. But a lot of times it would be retired. It would be a retirement to do something, to still be a sled dog, but to do something, just a different schedule or a different style of dog sledding, maybe different speeds, different distances, different climate, whatever. So every operation is different. Every climate is different.
So by and large, Jake, what would require a dog to go in retirement? Of course, there are many different variables, but just sort of speaking to the pet owner listeners out there, why would a dog, that just finished Iditarod, say this year, and the musher says that, the dog's name is Max. Max needs to retire this year. What would cause him to say that, just kind of on a broad stroke?
It's just maybe part of it has to do with the bond that each musher has with each dog, and you just kind of know, and it's hard to put it into words. So, but it might just be something where the type of racing that you're doing, whatever the musher is doing, they will come to a point where they just know that that dog isn't going to be able to do that type of racing another year or whatever. So then maybe they'll have them train him up, get him conditioned up for that racing year, and they'll do the races that year, and then but they just kind of know it's not going to. The dog isn't going to be able to be capable of doing the distances and or speeds or whatever for another year, and so then they could retire them after that based on what they think is going to be best for that dog or each dog individually, because everybody's different.
So, Jake, from my experience, I've been mushing since the early 90s. Sled dogs are a hardy bunch. They don't have typically a lot of illnesses. They don't have a lot of genetic injuries, hip dysplasia, that sort of thing. I guess my next question is when you get these dogs, do you have to do a lot of rehabilitative care for them, say that they are injured or frail in some way, or are most of these guys just still raring to go, but they just don't meet the demands of a racing kennel?
I'm going to have to knock on wood when I say this, but still to this day, we've never had a dog with hip dysplasia or arthritis, and I've worked with hundreds of older sled dogs. I'm sure we haven't had it diagnosed. There's probably been dogs in their very upper ages that might have a small bit of it, but like it's not anything that is obvious or anything that they need to get checked out for, because they're still getting around perfectly fine. We have a couple of 18-year-old dogs right now. They're going on 19, and you look at them walk around or run around or whatever, and you try to watch them to see if there is any kind of limp or anything, and there's just nothing. They're just fully comfortable, feeling good. Their stride is perfect. So I'm not saying it can't happen, but I think that keeping dogs active is important for them, and they aren't going to shut down and break down as easy. So keeping their muscles in good shape and stuff, we just don't see it. So that might just be a super rare thing, but that's what, in my experience, just what we've dealt with. So we're fortunate in saying that we haven't seen those kinds of things, and we don't see with sled dogs, we're not seeing many other common genetic issues that other dogs are dealing with, like even like cancer. We've seen cancer just a few times, and it's pretty rare. So
Jake, you talked about a couple of 18-year-old dogs that are running around in your yard, and for folks that are listening, the show tile, the graphic that you see on the show today, is of one of those dogs, and the dog's name is T. And
yep.
he is 18 years old, and in that picture, he is still in harness, meaning he's still out there enjoying what he does with his team of sled dogs. Can you tell us about
He's
T?
in lead.
That's awesome. He's in lead. Can you tell us a bit about T? What is his story? Where did he come from? And my goodness, at 18 years old, he's almost had a double life of your typical lifespan of the typical family pet, isn't it?
Not all dogs are getting up to those ages. We do have two of them that are 18 going on 19 this summer, and they're doing great. But they're running on a schedule that works best for them. It's not as often as they were when they were younger, but it's often enough that they're getting out and staying active, and that mentally keeps them happy and healthy and all that. So physically and mentally, it's great for them. I don't know what's different about him, because we're not usually seeing ages quite that high. We do see into the mid-teens fairly often. It's usually somewhere in the low to mid-teens, but these guys are in their upper teens. So
yeah, that's amazing to have a sled dog still running on a team at that age. I remember one of our oldest dogs, his name was Ringo. He passed away at about age 17, but he sure couldn't run at that age. He was always raring to go. He was barking and carrying on when the other teams went out, but he just didn't have the physical ability to do that. So my next question, Jake, we've sort of talked about how they come to you, of course, the care that they get when they're there. I guess my next question is, do they stay there their entire lives, or are they do they stay at your place for a while and then are fostered out to pet homes or things like that?
Right. Yeah. Almost in every case, the dogs that we get are going to stay here the rest of their life. It's the occasional time that it isn't like that is usually would be we maybe give a dog out as a pet to someone that has worked with us. Almost all the dogs that we've given that have left our kennel is going to people that have worked with us, so that bonded well with them or whatever. And not that many of them. There's not that many that way, because they usually are staying here because this is what they want to be, and that's the best situation for them. But I did just give two dogs to a guy that's starting up a new kennel just a few days ago, actually. So that's a rare case like that. But most of the dogs are staying here for their entire life, because they're staying active for so long, and then the downhill period at the end is usually very short because they go downhill quick, especially when they're mentally and physically active for so long. They're healthy, and then like gone, like really quick. It's a quick downhill at the end because they're so healthy, and that's how a healthy person goes down. So it's not like what a lot of people are used to with dogs that are struggling with whatever genetic issues they have or whatever, this unhealthy lifestyle. Because of their genetics and their lifestyle and their diet and their mental stimulation and their living in a natural environment and all those things working together, they're living fuller, healthier lives and solid, and they don't have to go through that long of period of struggling at the end, or maybe not at all. Like, so these dogs that are in their mid to upper teens, they're still so strong and healthy. Like, I was just working with Key the other day, and I'm just like, just kind of massaging and working with him. They're like, he's still muscled up and just solid dog. So yeah, I don't know. It's incredible to work with them. Very rewarding to work with these older dogs. So we were talking at the beginning a little bit about some of the like options for older dogs as they retire from off of a racing team. There's different things for different dogs. It just depends on the personality or what the musher might think is going to be best for that dog. They have a strong bond with their dogs and their team. That is a relationship that is way stronger than most people have with other people, much less dogs. Some people have stronger relationships with dogs than people, but either way. But yeah, they're some of the different options that they could do. They could stay in the kennel where they're from and be, still be somewhat of an asset to the team. Maybe that's working with training up puppies. Maybe a good leader can start working with young dogs and training them up as new leaders, or kind of apprentice leader training, because they learn well from each other. A lot of the training is just them teaching each other, because we don't teach them very much at all. It's mostly them teaching each other and them learning from each other and kind of whatever was inherited and passed down from the generations is kind of a big part of it. And then so that's an option. A dog could stay there and just be a part of the kennel or a part of the household or whatever, because they're well loved where they're from. But they could send the dog somewhere that might suit the dog's needs a little better as well at that stage in life. So they could go to a rec team or a tour kennel or a startup kennel or something like that to stay in the mushing lifestyle, or they can be just a pet and live a pet lifestyle. But it depends on the dog. Some dogs might not get much out of that. They might not enjoy that very much. They might think like, why are you doing this to me? I want to stay with my pals or whatever, or be with sled dogs because that's my culture, and they thrive in that culture. But some dogs might do a little better as a pet if they're, it just depends on the personality though.
So Jake, before we close the show today, I definitely want to hear about the day in the life of a retired sled dog. I think that's an important story to tell here. But before we get into that, I encourage everybody that's listening to the show to go check out your pages on Facebook. You take some very cool pictures of going out with these dogs and with the tours and just going out on your own with your family. Such cool photos that you post, and I definitely want to make sure people can link up with you there. So Jake, what is the day in the life of a retired sled dog, at least at your place?
Right, and so they're retired. They're not retired sled dogs. They're still sled dogs. They're retired from racing. So just wanted to clear that up. They're sled dogs their whole lives, and they're still active sled dogs here. They're just not racing anymore. So day in the life, they're just living their lifestyle. It's their culture. It's what they love and are passionate about, and they let us be a part of that. And we try to facilitate, a lifestyle for them, try to facilitate their day-to-day, activities and stuff to fit in with that, with their lives. and then I was talking about how they teach each other. The older dogs are very good at passing on information or just skills to the next generation or the next dog coming up. And then like what's amazing about working with older dogs, especially, how rewarding it is like you can see. I mean, this happens at any age, I guess, not specific to old dogs, but you can see the effects of like a specific dog even in the next generation. So like maybe after a dog has passed on, and maybe years later, maybe decades later, you're still seeing the effects of a certain dog in the rest of the dogs because you're seeing that those quirks or whatever in the next generation. Maybe it's a certain leading style or whatever. So that's pretty rewarding to see and be a part of. And we get to be a part of that as well. They're teaching us things. We teach the next generation things. They teach each other. There's a lot of just being dogs, being sled dogs. So we're trying to let them live their lifestyle, and we're walking into their world. Like we're living alongside of them. They're not having to restructure their lives to fit our needs or whatever. So like that's what the regular society might be used to, where dogs have to be trained to do all these different things and to live in a house and learn etiquette and stuff, and that's all fine for that lifestyle. But we're in their world, and we are a part of their lives, and so we have to kind of convert to that way of thinking. So, and that's what we teach people as they come in to meet dogs. Like as they come, we're telling them that they have to do things a certain way, and you can't be. I mean, we're equals with them, and they can jump up and show their affection if they want and all that. So, but yeah, so a day in the life. I mean, they're social with each other. They're very, they like to play around, and they do a lot of running around and free run time, and they're they like to be very interactive with each other. But every dog is different as well. Some dogs might not want to be super social with everybody. Everybody's different, just like people. So it just kind of depends. What we try to work with each dog individually. But what's great about sled dogs is, like, especially retired racing dogs, they've been through so much in their life. They've had so many life experiences. They're just like, they're pretty chill. I mean, they're excited and stuff too, but like, especially when you take a sled dog somewhere else, like you take them to go for a walk and where there's other people, or maybe they're going to a visit to the vet or whatever, and then you see other dogs and around them, and the other dogs are like spazzing out, and then the sled dogs are just like, what is that guy's problem? So kind of fun to see that, because they're so well-rounded in this lifestyle.
Very interesting, for sure. Jake, we're almost out of time here, but before we go, I would love for you to tell our listeners a little bit about the very unique place where you live there in northern Minnesota. I used to live in Duluth, so I'm very familiar with your neck of the woods. Part of your daily routine, as they say, is to hook up dogs and run in the Boundary Waters area. You're very close to Canada. Give people a little bit of a glimpse into that part of the country. What is it all about that makes that part of the world so special?
It's hard to put into words. I mean, it's a pretty incredible area. There's, the Boundary Waters Canoe area wilderness. It's mostly known for its canoe trips in the summer, and but we're dog sledding all over in the winter. It's a lot of lakes. The whole area is part of the Canadian Shield, where it's just network of lakes and ridges in between them, a lot of ledge rock. There's just a lot of rock around here, and then there's so we're running on a lot of lakes or waterways or swamps or whatever, because there's a lot of water. All the water kind of starts here and flows away. The water here flows to Hudson Bay, so, and then beyond. So it's a big forest. There's just pine trees mostly everywhere, and rocks, and so it's a great place to play with sled dogs, because it's a rugged area. There's a lot of hills, there's a lot of bumps and rocks and stuff, and it can be a rugged area, but it's beautiful.
What are the temperature fluctuations in your area? What is the high temperature in the summer and a potential low in the winter?
We sometimes see 90s in the summer. Like usually every year it hits 90 or so, but not always. And then in the winter, this winter, I think the coldest we saw was 57 below actual temp, around zero or so in the heart of winter. Sometimes it doesn't get above zero for a couple weeks. So the high in the day is below zero, and the low at night is way below zero. So
very good, Jake.
So it's a big fluctuation.
Oh yes, for sure, Jake. One last thing here. I know you've given this question and answer back and forth a few times. I think you've been on the show 4 times now. This is your 4th appearance on Dogworks Radio and or Mushing Radio. But the question is the same that we ask all of our guests, and that is, if a person comes to you, Jake, and they're looking to get involved with sled dogs, whether it's a retired racing dog or they want to start their own kennel and they're not quite sure what steps to take, if you could offer them one piece of advice, what would you give them?
Yeah, and I might change it every time you ask me, but because there's so many different pieces of advice to give. But I recommend for people to listen to their dogs and learn from their dogs is going to be one of the best ways to learn. I'm not trying to say don't go learn from other people as well, because that is very needed. But you can learn a lot just by listening to your dogs.
That's great advice for sure, because they can teach us so much, whether they're in harness or just hanging out with us in the yard, or even the house dog can teach us a heck of a lot about that relationship that we have. Jake, how can folks find you on social media? Are you on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter? Where is the best place to meet up?
Yeah, I guess I'm on all 3 of those, just as my name, Jake Hway, Hway, or Chili Dogs, the Chili Dogs Sled Dog Trips on Facebook or Instagram.
Very good. On behalf of our guest today, Jake Hway, calling in from Ely, Minnesota, he takes care of retired racing dogs, and lots and lots of good advice coming from this guy here. As we mentioned, he's been on this show several times, and he has a heck of a lot of good stories and advice for sure. Jake, it's always a pleasure, and we'll talk again soon, okay?
Thank you, Robert. Thanks for all that you do for these dogs.
Thank you. Until next time, guys, we'll see you later. Goodbye.
From Dogworks Radio, this is Mushing Radio. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we invite you to subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll find a link on the episode notes. You can tap or swipe on the episode cover art, and you'll see some offers from our sponsors. You can support our show by supporting them. If you like what you have heard, we would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe too. Your hosts are Alex Stein and Robert Forto. Our producer is Robert Forto, created for Dogworks Radio.